and welcome to Customs and Conversions.
Hello, my name is Mark Bishop. I'm the owner of this 2000 Honda Insight that I purchased in December of 2013 and converted it to pure electric drive for my local use. It used to have a hybrid motor, had a 1-liter gas motor and pancake electric that were attached to a 5-speed gearbox, and I took that out and replaced it with a HP EVS electric motor from California, motor and controller, and I coupled the new motor to the original 5-speed transmission, put it in second gear, and made a plate to attach the motor and center it with the transmission shaft, and I put a coupler to couple the motor and transmission shaft together, and I added a charger and a DC to DC converter. I have no 12-volt battery, and I used the battery out of a Nissan Leaf. It was a 2010 battery, and I've got most of it mounted behind the seat. There's a couple of spars below and one above that support the battery really well, and it was easy to install. And I added the charger beside it, and I had to do a little upholstery work to make everything look kind of like it belonged there, but that's all I had to do. And it charges at level 1, which is what I usually charge at. That's about 10 miles per hour, and then it'll also charge at level 2 that give me nearly 40 miles per hour. This is the under the hood of my Honda, and this conversion has about 42,000 miles on it. But I took the old motor, which came out of here, an electric booster motor, out, and put this motor along with this controller in here. That came from HP EVS, and you have to center it to the shaft, transmission shaft, and space it. And I held it in place with this and spaced it with that, and then I built a coupler that ties the two shafts together. And I put this DC to DC converter in to give me 12 volts. It takes the pack voltage of about 120 and produces it to 12. And here's my AC compressor, a couple of relays here for the heater, and it's got a ceramic heater and the other relay for the air conditioner. And here's a contactor that when you turn the ignition on, that connects the battery to the controller. And that's all there is. It's amazingly simple and reliable as well. Now this is the rear of the car, and it's got quite a bit of storage. And I use this for my pickup truck to haul everything. And the battery is from the Leaf, as I mentioned before. It's from here to here, up to the seat, and all the way down to the belly pan underneath. And there's my charger. And all that stuff just sits there. I mean, it's been so reliable, it's amazing. And here's the charge port for charging. I can charge level 1 or level 2 on that port. And that's all there is to converting an electric car. I've got a couple of really simple switches in the front. I've got a battery management system that gives me a fuel gauge and energy gauge, and also there's a meter there that comes with the motor and controller. When you're driving an electric car, the range matters the most when you're on a long distance trip, and that's when you're traveling the fastest, and that's why aerodynamics matters. The more aerodynamic your car is, the farther you can go at a higher speed without penalty. And you can convert a boxier vehicle, and they're great for low speed and around town, etc. But trying to travel in a Jeep, for example, would require a huge battery. It would be expensive and heavy, and handling would be affected and so forth. So lightweight and aerodynamics is really important when you choose the vehicle that you want to convert.
So before I start, I just want to compliment Mark on his conversion. I thought he did real nice work. I also know that he made very wise choices. It's very efficient. Uses half the energy that the Bernardi used, but you can see, and it was also a model of simplicity in the choices that he made. You can see that the Bernardi was something altogether different. It's a complete rebuild of a kit car. And without any more discussion, I'll go ahead and start it. Okay, this is the kit car.
That's a beautiful car.
And it does turn heads. I'll give it that. There's an article on it in Wikipedia. They were made in Wisconsin in the 80s. This one had a Mustang 2 V6 in it before I got hold of it.
So these were kit cars, right?
It was a kit car. The frame came with the kit, and here it is stripped. Had a really ugly bumper. We even gutted the inside, which was very moldy.
Is that all mold, that yellow stuff?
No, that's glue. The car had clearly gotten wet. It's a convertible. This is the new motor mount.
Okay.
This is the front battery box, and you can also see the motor, the mount, and the transmission, well, actually the bell housing behind it. The bell housing is the skinny part between the motor and the transmission. And this is a drawing of the bell housing. It's a clever design, 2 flanges and a tube. Now this is as we're getting closer to being ready for a test drive.
If the slideshow is going too quick, you might want to go manual mode so you can talk a little more. Hey, Mark, come in here. I'm going to let you take over. If you want to come join.
Okay.
This is Mark himself. You guys saw him on video. One of the Insight conversion. Thank you, Mark.
And we had a little time issue there. I'm sorry if I'm late. Thought it was an hour early.
That's okay. We showed your Insight video, and now we're going through the slideshow on the Bernardi, and I'm taking the suggestion to go through it manually. So I'm just going to keep this screen. It might help. Here's the battery box. The cooling system right here is a small oil cooler for a radiator. That's a reservoir for a windshield washer. The controller is up here. This is a contactor box. That's the new master brake cylinder. This is the DC to DC 12-volt power supply. And we kept the old steering rack, but we replaced the steering column. So moving right along, there's a little close-up of the radiator and a couple fans on it. It's actually mounted horizontally. You can also see a K&N air filter underneath it. That the best place to, where I had the room to put it, this is kind of crowded under the hood. To put the air cooling system for the motor was a series of blowers underneath the battery pack. There's the contactor box, just another view. I bought a new Uga horn because the old horn didn't sound like much. There's the insides of the battery box. There are two contactors in parallel. This is a very large circuit breaker for DC. Those are shunts for measuring the current both from the battery pack, and a separate one for measuring the current through the motor. And this is a fuse. That's the old seats, old interior, but we've got the car back together. We got a new instrument panel, and the new gear shifters in place, and we had to cut a hole in the tunnel and build a cowling around the transmission. Here's the rebuilt rear end from a 1992 Mustang 8.8. It was rebuilt, and we put a larger ring gear in it to adjust the gear ratio. This is where the gas tank used to be. It's under the trunk, but I had to cut a hole in the trunk and borrow about 2 inches of trunk to fit it. That's the charger, similar to Mark's. That is an ammeter for adjusting the rate you're drawing power to charge it. You can also see the top of a conduit that runs the power cables up to the front of the car. This is how it looked in the shop for some 17 months, essentially, but it's nearly ready for testing. This is a shot of the whole drivetrain. You can see the front motor mount, barely see the motor, the bell housing, the transmission, drive shaft, and the rear end. This is just another shot showing the transmission mount, and then at the upper corner is the motor mount. This is how it looked on its maiden voyage. We didn't really need the hood, and for simplicity, we left it off. Okay, this is an embedded video, but it's in manual mode. The first part of this has no sound, but the second part does. That's yours truly and an old shipmate of mine, David Waller. This is at Gill Welding. David Gill was an invaluable partner in this project. This was his shop, and we kept the car there for almost 18 months.
All right, let's see ya.
Dang, that thing gets out of there quick, doesn't it?
This is the car with a new convertible top at Evcon 2013. It's done at an airport. We had a drag strip and an autocross, and also a conference inside an airplane hangar. I have some photos of this conference where there's a lot of different conversions and customs, and we'll get a quick shot of those later if we still have time. This is the redone interior, which was done locally. I paid for this. I thought they did a real nice job. This is the car sitting out of my old house, and looking good if I do say so myself. Okay, here's some upgrades that occurred along the way. This car was first put on the road in 2010. I drove it for 8 years, almost 8 years, with essentially trouble-free. I ended up increasing the cooling system, added some bling to it, and I got that's a fancy washer reservoir. There's a new 12-volt battery supply. The other one got hit by rain and it wiped it out. LED headlights, all the lights in the car were LED once I got the headlights converted. This is an improvement to the battery pack. When I replaced the batteries, I insulated the pack and gave it heating to give it a better cold weather performance. There's a small inverter to power the heater. There's a DC 12-volt positive bus connector inside this box. 12-volt, 144-volt minus a bus box here to add another shunt for an amp hour meter. I added vent fans to there was a vent hole below that is the 12-volt fuse box. This is the rear battery box, danger high voltage. There's the charger, ammeter, and heater controller. That's the boot for the convertible top. This is a set of test points. I added a battery monitoring system, which is simply a way to check the voltage to see if your batteries are happy. my power pack is divided into 2 halves, and each half is divided in half. So I have 4 quarters, and the test points show me the 2 halves of the rear half, and I have a similar one up front. So the 4 quarters of the battery, I compare the voltages, and if they're all the same, I've got a pretty good indication that all the cells are happy. I had to upgrade the fuel cap to increase the size of the connection so that I could do 240 volt charging. And that gave me a pretty rapid charge for this car. And this was something I did at Pellissippi with a CNC machine, little external bling. Here I am at Cars and Coffee in 2017. Another shot at Cars and Coffee, hanging out with all the Teslas. This was a dyno done at Evcon 2013, and learned that I have 72 horsepower and max torque of 172 foot-pounds. And that's pretty good for a lightweight car. It's pretty quick, pretty nimble on the road. Net gain Transwarp 9 motor. It has a 35 horsepower rating, but electric motors are different than gasoline engines. And you can see that actually we had measured it at 72 horsepower. There's the Lenco ST1200 2-speed transmission. It also has a reversing unit, so I did not have to reverse the motor electrically. It also had neutral, so I could tow the car. I have a 1000 amp net gain controller. The original batteries were high power, and I replaced them. I didn't know how to take care of them well, and I still have most of them not in the car anymore, but I abused them pretty badly and replaced them with new CALB batteries. It's a nominal 144 volt pack, but when you charge it, it's actually up around 160 volts. My charger can take 240 or 120, it doesn't care. And the max it can draw is 20 amps. I originally had an IOTA DC-DC converter and a small gel cell auxiliary 12 volt battery. And as I mentioned before, a Mustang rear end. The 488 to 1 ring gear and the transmission had about a 1.48 to 1 and 1 to 1. So I actually had 2 speeds that were, I'll come back to this. The 2 speeds were 7.22 to 1 and 4.88 to 1. And, okay, so the initial curb weight was 2080 pounds. The stripped weight is 1400 pounds. Batteries were 400 pounds. And so on. Final curb weight, 2,300 pounds approximately. So we gained a little weight, a lot less than with lead acid batteries though. The usable power was 11.5 kilowatts out of a 16 kilowatt hour pack. That should have an H. Okay, this is average consumption, not very efficient. Range was only 40 miles, but it was designed that way, and it was around town, the car. It could go 80 miles an hour. I used the interstate a lot. Again, I drove it for almost 8 years. If you could go all day, which you couldn't, you wouldn't want to exceed 60 because the motor would get too hot. It was recommended to keep it between 2,000 and 4,000, and those are the gear ratios. And these calculators are, if you're doing any of this yourself, Mark Williams sells rear ends, and they have a website. So if you Google Mark Williams axle, they have calculators on there, and they look a little different nowadays. This is 10 years ago, but they still have them. I checked. So you plug in your gear ratios, you measure your tire rollout, or you can get a calculated one by using the tire size. You can plug in the speed you want and find out what the RPM is, or vice versa. Plug in the RPM and you'll find out what speed you get. So at the low end, I can run at 20 or 30 and keep it the recommended RPM. And that's convenient. And here's the sweet spot of the motor. You can run it forever at this RPM. And those are very convenient speeds to have around town, 32 and 47. At the high end is where we get to 60 for a sustained high speed. And I set the red line a little lower than it really was, but at 5,000 you could get 75 miles an hour. I have done 80. I never exceeded 80. Never felt like it. Again, a credit to David Gill. I appreciate him helping me. I was the project manager. He did fabrication, welding, mechanical. He helped with design, and was the project manager. I did electrical and design. Okay, well, I'm going to move right along. Doing it that way took a lot more time, but okay, I'm going to jump right in. This is a local manufacturing startup and Shockwave Motors, and I'll let John McMillan tell his story for himself.
Hello, I'm John McMillan. One of my earliest memories is of my dad and I sitting on the kitchen floor. We were cleaning up an old car starter motor. His idea was to mount it on my little red pedal tractor. He was way ahead of his time with that idea. Electric riding toys are everywhere, and that was over 60 years ago, and it sure made an impression on me. At Shockwave Motors, we make electric vehicles cool by providing a high-performance, three-wheeled, three-passenger, all-electric commuter car that's convenient, economical, pollution-free, safe, and just plain fun to drive. The problem we are addressing is called range anxiety. When many people think about buying electric cars, they worry about if they're going to have enough power to get home or find a level 2 charging station so they can plug in. Smaller towns are particularly underserved. The county I live in has a population of over 64,000, and there's only one charging station in town, and that's at the power company. Range anxiety is a key reason why people don't buy electric cars. Most people spend less than an hour driving to and from work, so the typical car used for commuting is parked about 95% of the time. A simple 120-volt outlet is all you need for our electric Roadster to have a range of over 200 miles per day. And this is what sets us apart. No other electric vehicle with our level of performance can do that. They all have to have level 2 chargers and 220-volt systems. The pollution-free Defiant EV3 Roadster has a single charge range of over 100 miles and then plugs into any standard 120-volt outlet at home and at work and gets complete recharge in about 8 hours. This is 3 times faster than a Nissan Leaf. In fact, the new Leaf with a larger battery system can take over 30 hours to get a full charge from a standard 120-volt system. A simple charge at work provides you a daily range of over 200 miles. The Roadster's top speed's over 70 miles an hour. The Roadster is less than $20,000 after the federal rebates taken into account, and according to J.D. Power, that's less than the average price of a used vehicle. Finally, each Roadster, when driven only about 15,000 miles a year, saves 30 barrels of crude oil. Our go-to-market strategy is to sell the Roadster through a non-exclusive franchise dealership network and then provide additional service by partnering with an existing network of almost 1,000 service centers. So our startup strategy is to establish an assembly factory in a vacant automobile dealership facility, as it will have much of the infrastructure we need already in place. And typically these are fairly economical to rent. We will sell in key markets throughout the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean markets. In fact, we've already established our first dealership in Cayman Islands. John Felder is licensed to sell not only in Cayman, but in the Bahamas, Jamaica, and he was the first American automotive dealer authorized to sell in Cuba. Building on our success in the North American market, we will expand to other key markets in Europe, Asia, and India. ID TechX projects a $10.5 billion market for three-wheeled EVs by about 2025. We are building relationships in other countries to provide us with contract manufacturing as we expand from selling several hundred Roadsters per year to several thousand. We've looked extensively at the Morgan, the Arcimoto Fun utility vehicle, and the electromechanical Solo, and created a competitive matrix to simplify our comparisons. With less than $1,000 in paid advertising in the last few years, we've acquired almost 6,000 followers on social media. Our YouTube videos have had over 500,000 views. We've demonstrated the Roadster at shows across the country and talked to thousands of people, and we have sign-up sheets available and collect their comments. 1,200 people have subscribed to our newsletter, and about 10% of them have told us in writing they want to buy a Roadster when we're in production. This equates to almost $3 million in pre-orders. Key validation includes winning the CleanTech Open Southeast region and finishing in the top 10 in the national competition, winning Tycon Detroit's 2017 award for excellence in entrepreneurship. In 2016, we received ID TechX Award for most significant innovation in electric vehicles, as well as being featured on the TV show All American Makers. I've got decades of experience with electric vehicles. Norm has a long career as a consultant. Kerry is our media relations expert. John Felder is our advisor. He's CEO at Cayman Automotive and Premier Auto Export. He's our gateway to the Caribbean. Richard is our mentor. He graduated from Harvard with an MBA. Tom is our spokesperson. Our fabrication team's composed of Richard and Andrew. They've got decades of automotive experience. And at Shockwave Motors, we make electric cars cool by providing a high-performance, all-electric Roadster that's economical, pollution-free, and fun to drive. I designed the electric Roadster with the commuter in mind, so we're not trying to be all things to all people. So it has a top speed of around 70 miles an hour. It seats 3, 1 in the front, 2 in the back. Also, it's a convertible hardtop, so the hardtop lifts right off. With that removed, you'll see a roll bar protection system, much like you'd find in a race car. There's front and rear crumple zones, and additionally, seat belts and shoulder harnesses for protection. You see, this is what really sets us apart. We plug into any standard 120-volt outlet anywhere for a full recharge in about 8 or 9 hours. No other electric vehicle on the market today with this kind of performance can do that. They've all got to have level 2 chargers, 220-volt systems. We can plug in anywhere. We're all about convenience and ease of use. I've been converting electric cars for over 40 years, and I decided I wanted to build one from the ground up, and I wanted to make it as efficient as possible. So that means a 3-wheel layout. 3 wheels means less rolling resistance at slow speeds. And it also means I can put a more aerodynamic shape for better performance at high speeds. That led us directly to the design layout of the Defiant Roadster. At Shockwave Motors, we believe the future is electric. Join with us, and let's build that future together.
Commuting in Silicon Valley is always a challenge. Well, John, I think you have an answer here for commuters. What are we looking at?
You're looking at the Defiant all-electric Roadster. We call it Defiant because we are.
Well, and it is a Roadster. I mean, this is an all-electric vehicle, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is?
It is an all-electric Roadster, 3 wheels. It has a top speed of around 75 miles an hour. It seats 3, 1 in the front, 2 in the back, and it is a hardtop convertible. The top comes right off.
And so it is an electric, so you get the benefits of being able to plug it in and go and not have to worry about gas or emissions or anything like that, right?
That's exactly right. We have a daily range of up to 200 miles per day. But what really sets us apart is you can drive at 80 to 100 miles, plug it into any standard 110-volt outlet anywhere while you're at work, for example, get a full recharge, drive another 80 to 100 miles back home.
And so, from a cost perspective, what are we looking at for tooling around in town with this?
Well, we've got a very low and very economical operating cost of around 2 cents per mile.
And so, from a retail cost, what are we looking at? Do you think?
Yeah, we're looking at less than $25,000, and that's before any state or federal rebates kick in. We've established relationships with key suppliers. We've got body molds, chassis designs all taken care of. We're ready for those next few steps to get us into production.
And so, when are you looking at being in production?
We're looking at entering in production in the next 9 to 12 months.
Excellent. And so it looks like it's got all the accoutrements a car would normally have, except it is an electric car, but you have a transmission, you said.
We do have a transmission in this one. I call it a semi-automatic. You really don't need to use a clutch, for example, but it is a semi-automatic 2-speed transmission.
And looking at the video you showed me, it really can scoot.
It definitely does. As I said, top speed's about 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour, and good, strong acceleration as well.
Now, does it have a radio and that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. Got a radio and lights, headlights, all that. And there'll be a kind of more of a media center in the production version where you can plug in whatever you need to.
Excellent. Well, I wish you luck, John, and happy driving.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, I'll start with some of Mark's pictures. This is another conversion that Mark Bishop did. And Mark, feel free to take it from me, but it's a beautiful job. It's now his brother's car. And here's the battery box. This car actually weighs less than that Bernardi does.
1811.
You did a great job on this. This is a restoration as well as a conversion. Take it away, Mark.
It's a 1959 Morris Minor that my brother John found in a junkyard in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he brought it to me, and I restored it, and we put a AC50 motor from HB EVS in the location where the transmission normally goes, and just connected it to a drive shaft straight to the rear end, and put the batteries in where the motor used to go. That's the controller on the firewall that comes with the electric motor. And he drives it to work every day. It's a terrific car. It weighs 1,811 pounds. I think top speed's 100 pace. I'm sorry, is 84, and it'll outrun my Honda Insight in a drag race because it's a little lighter. But it's a trouble-free, electric cars, as most of them are. I did that in 2014. Go ahead.
Mark, we're running out of, well, we got a little bit of time left, but forgive me for stepping on you there, but I wanted you to answer one of the questions if you're willing to. Someone asked the approximate cost of your Honda Insight conversion.
Okay, my Honda Insight, 2000 model Honda Insight, the entire cost was about, I think, $13,800. That included buying the car, buying the batteries. The batteries were surplus Nissan batteries, buying the motor and controller, and I paid extra for a charger. You could actually save another $2,000 if you use an Evcon Chinese charger. And I think I paid $3,000 for the car. Yeah, and then there's a DC-DC converter, and some upholstery work and so forth. But that's what I had. I hope that answers the question.
Gary, this is Jack.
Oh, okay, we will entertain more questions if there are any. In the meantime, I'm just going to run through. This is from the EV conference in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in 2013. It was called Evcon 2013. This is an interesting vehicle here. It has the same motor as the Bernardi, but there's two of them Siamese together, and two controllers that were, each one of those controllers was more powerful than the one in the Bernardi. This is a Dragster, and it's in a Mazda Miata. There are videos on YouTube of this Dragster in action. There it is. It's not a very good photo, but there it is on a trailer. This is a model, a battery pack in a kit car replica of a Cobra, AC Cobra. Sorry, I did not call the bad pictures. I'll just speed through them. And I'm going to talk until someone speaks up or sends me a question. This is the hangar. The fellow that ran that conference is named Jack Rickard. He made some money on the internet, and this is his DC-3, his MG collection, and his hangar at the Cape Girardeau Airport. And the other half of the hangar was where the conference was held that day at our autocross and drag race. To the left of what you see here are where the tables were. Here's some cars outside the hangar, a VW Thing, and a Ford pickup, and the Dodge, I forget what that's called. There's the Bernardi, and I'm not sure what that is down there. I'll just keep moving. This is an interesting car. It's a custom. It's two Nissan Leafs married together so that it's now a stretch limo length Nissan Leaf. This is a pure custom car designed to be as efficient as possible. And it probably rivals the Aptera that people were talking about earlier. He has it at a very efficient point 7 years ago, but he is trying to make it so that it can be solar powered and recharged during the day for the extent of the owner's commute. This is a Dave Rivnick, a member of our club, with his Tesla Roadster. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to know all the models of cars here, but and we don't really have time to do a slide by slide. Yeah, thank you. That was a PT Cruiser that I stumbled on. There's that. The Mazda Miata Dragster is called Assault and Battery, if you want to look it up on YouTube. I think that's a great name for it. There used to be a video of it. I believe this car, I don't know if he won both the drag race and the autocross, but he did win the autocross. This is Michael Bream here. He's the owner of EV West. They're a good source of supplies. If you're looking to do this kind of thing yourself, supplies and equipment. EVTV, Jack Rickard, the host of this conference, has a store on his website, EVTV, and he's also a good source of supplies and equipment. That's a very impressive piece of work there. You can see I was enamored. I took a lot of pictures of it. This is a kit car EV. There's the Bernardi. Another kit car. This is the start of the drag race. And this was Jack Rickard's Tesla Model S. He ran that around the thing too. There's looks like the PT Cruiser. These folks did nice work on these cars. This, I forget exactly what this is, but I think it's something like, it's a 30-something.
38 Dodge, I believe.
38 Dodge. And that box is the battery pack. A lot of power there. This is that Cobra. The tunnel is clear plastic, and you got an 11-inch net gain motor sitting right beside you. It's pretty interesting.
Hey, Gary,
Okay, time to wrap it up.
we're gonna have to answer some Q&A questions here and then wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm looking for questions.
On the Q&A thing, we've got them up here. We can read them off to you.
Here's one. What are your thoughts on a conversion of a 1954 GMC pickup using a 2019 Leaf and all its components, stripping the sheet metal off and mounting truck cab and bed to pan?
I've got some thoughts, and I'll say it quickly and let anyone else add their thoughts. But you can convert anything, but you have to design it the way you want it, and you have to make your trade-offs. I mean, you still have to obey the laws of physics. If you, like a Bernardi, aerodynamically, it's a brick, but it looks nice. Whereas Mark's Insight was clearly much more efficient. It's uses about half the energy that the Bernardi used. So I think that any pickup truck is a great choice, and you're going to enjoy any car you do. One of our founding member of our Knoxville club did a Jeep, and she loved it. So she had Dave Rivnick's help.
I think we can take one more question here, Gary, and let me read it out. Could or should technical automotive community colleges learn how to do conversions like this for the masses of Americans who are unable to buy EVs? Since we're at crisis emissions, you guys could step up and teach the teachers if you were willing.
Well, I think they should do that. I think that there is some interest. There's a college level course at Oak Ridge. It's taught at the high school, but it's a college level course on car automotive repair and reconstruction and what have you. And they've done some EV work. So I think it's a great idea, and I'd be willing to help, but I'm retired and I'm not looking to start something myself.
I think with that, it's probably time to wrap up this webinar.
Okay, good for me.